Welcome to episode 836 of Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I am sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And you can support the show in a number of different ways through sharing and liking the shows, but also through signing up for the Patreon feed where you get extra shows for as little as $1 a month. But also, you can check out the merchandise store for the show where there are shirts of all different kinds, and sling bags, and aprons, and now coffee mugs with various designs made by friends of the show over the years. And support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making the show. Also, please check out the links in every episode description to friends of the show and their own projects. That would be, of course, Jen, the Arcane Observer, and her own channel. Uh, she's also the co host of this show on the weekends. And then Michael Strange of Troubled Minds Radio and the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows 24/7, as well as my own over there online. And yeah, definitely recommend that if you don't want to bother with setting up a playlist of podcasts or anything like that, and you don't want visuals. That's a good way to get all kinds of shows there whenever you want them. Uh, so I think that takes care of everything. My usual introduction thing. Sometimes I forget things, so I always like to try to make sure in my mind as I'm going, because I've forgotten parts of that intro before. So you'd think I'd have it totally memorized by now, but apparently not. Uh, so let me get to the document here that has all the true stories. Thank you all for being here to listen in, and let's get started here. So this first one says, I have always been interested in the paranormal. Since I was younger, I would look up stories and videos. I consider myself a believer, but I have never had an experience myself to back it up. 2 years ago, I returned home after going out with some friends to play card games. It was almost December. It was windy outside, so I had all my windows shut, with the outside shutters being fully closed, since I lived in an old apartment and there were always small window holes air could go through. I went straight to the bathroom since I had just spent 4 to 5 hours playing games. My bathroom door doesn't fully shut. It needs to be locked to stay shut. But since I live alone, I never shut it fully. Anyway, so there I was sitting on the toilet playing on my phone. 5 to 10 minutes passed by when suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw my door start to open slowly, but kept moving until it hit the clothes washer in front of me. I kind of froze because it has never happened to me in the 2 years I already lived there, no matter the windy winters I have been through, or earthquakes. When finished, I got up and decided to scan my whole apartment, especially windows, to see if I left something open that could cause the door to move itself. Everything was fully shut. Also, I realized the wind was super calm at the time. It had never happened before and has not since. When I first moved in, I checked on the internet, the web, about deaths or any encounters near my apartment, but I found nothing until today. I have no idea what caused it. I am not rejecting any form of physics. It might be the wind at the end of the day, but it still made me feel very uneasy. And that's where that one ends. Those one off kind of experiences are so strange because it makes it hard to know, again, if it is something that's could be explained away by air moving through a place or not. Because, at least in my mind, whenever something like that happens in an account that I read or hear about where an object moves, I feel like if it was going to be something caused by mundane circumstances, it would happen, even if not every day, but it would still happen uh, every so often over time, even if it's just once or twice a year. I feel like, given weather conditions and whatever else, like it would happen more often. But then you have accounts like this where I also wonder what could have caused that, and if it was sort of just regular forces of nature and fit laws of physics as they describe there. How did that happen? What were all the circumstances to lead to that door opening like that? And to me, that is almost just as weird as thinking it's some kind of a spirit or ghost or invisible being that made the door open because it only happened the one time. Either way, it is strange that happened. And so I'd love to find and share the accounts of this one experience that happened to someone in their entire life in a place that they know fairly well. Just as much as I love sharing the accounts of people saying I've had multiple experiences, because in the end, it's all still things we can look at, and it's more data points, and who knows what we can figure out maybe someday about how these things work. So uh, I don't know how to explain that. Really, I doesn't sound like there's any other excuse me details there. No intention that is made obvious by anything else that happened. It's just really odd. So I always like to share those kind of one time, one experience that this one person has ever had. Moving on to the next one here. This says, "This isn't my story, but my dad's, and it happened over 10 years ago when I was a child. My father was a security guard at a hospital, but the main hospital also had a separate, smaller campus about a mile away. It was mostly disused. It still had some people in it during the day, mostly doing office work. The important thing about this place is that it was a tuberculosis hospital in the 1930s. He didn't open them, but he showed me the rooms through the windows where they actually operated on people. One time, my mom and I met him there, and he walked us through a few of the hallways. I can't tell if it was the general emphasis of the place or something supernatural, but there was an energy there that even I, as a child, could feel and was absolutely terrified of. There were all kinds of messed up events. Janitors being chased by their own carts, seeing orbs. My dad described that one time he walked into a room and there was a pile of clocks ticking, and they all stopped at once. But that's not the worst of it. One night his shift was coming to an end, and he went to push the elevator button to head downstairs, but it stopped working. He thought, I'll take the stairs. He went through a set of double doors and realized that they locked behind him, so he couldn't go back. He went down the stairwell, and wouldn't you know it, he was halfway down and the light turned off. He thought, this is eerily similar to a horror movie. He pulled out his flashlight, but a few minutes later, that went off too. He made it, obviously. Some would chalk it up to perhaps the fact that it's an old building, but to have all of those happen at once is odd. That's where that one ends. Um, Hospitals, even if they're not being used in the same way anymore, medical facilities, they just have, they seem to be magnets for activity. Uh, and that one right there, I mean, that doesn't seem like residual energy. That seems like some kind of intelligence uh, wanting him to get out of there and or wanting to mess with him a little bit. I'm not sure, but maybe even both. Um, but it was, that's a lot to have happen, and that's just to him. Again, the article. I'm thinking of other research I do. The on haunted places and all that, those kinds of things, because that's what I use for those is articles. The uh, the account there of experiences, it doesn't talk about just his the writer's dad. It talks about other experiences from other people as well. Even the writer themselves there being terrified when moving through the building as a child. Now, some of that could definitely be if they were told about what the building was. Uh, then maybe that could be all it. But also, as has been talked about in so many different ways and shows and things, kids seem to be able to sense energies and things easier as a kid in a lot of cases. They haven't been taught that all these things that are unexplained, that they don't really exist, that it's all made up or exaggerated or hoaxed or misinterpreted. So they haven't been, that hasn't been drilled into them yet. And so they, when they pick up on things, I think it's important to notice that. So that's an amazing one there, though. I just really wonder. And the article, again, the post does not say where it was at, and I don't blame them for not wanting to give out too much information. But it seems like, I mean, it's a hospital. There's hospitals everywhere. So, moving on to the next one here. This one says, my wife constantly talks about the past times she used to live in, and I've always laughed it off. She even claims we were together in a previous life back in the 1600s or something. Anyway, over the past 20 to 25 years, I've had some very specific dreams. They all involve me dying, and they've all felt so real that I've woken up in horror, screaming. In one, I was a soldier in a war. I was running with a group of guys, and we were running towards another man who was screaming at us. I stepped on something, and and it, or landmine or something, and I remember my head hitting dirt and chunks of dirt hitting my face before blackness. In another one, I was walking at night with a woman in an empty grocery store parking lot. We were approaching a man in a jacket who was familiar and friendly to me in the dream. He pulled a revolver and shot me in the head. There are very specific things in these dreams that make them seem more real to me. I could feel wind and wetness and cold. I've never had dreams before where I could feel elements like that. And that's where that one ends. Um, it is amazing. There's so many accounts of people having memories of previous lives, reincarnation. It's a whole concept. I haven't done a show on it yet. That may be something to add to the list of topic-based shows that Jen and I do at some point, because it does come up again and again, and not just in scientific studies, but just in accounts like this. So it really, there seems to be something to it. What it is, I don't know. But this is not the first account of this I've heard of before. The dream aspect is also, I I think that is one way we have experiences like this, where we either experience past lives or different lives, or we experience visitations from loved ones that have passed on. This has been talked about before over on Troubled Minds Radio. The fact that it seems as though the dream realm or the process of dreaming is sort of, it can be a nexus, a gateway to a lot of different things, and I don't doubt that it could be some kind of a gateway to either acquiring or rediscovering memories, or even just for brief times somehow transitioning or moving into those other lives when they are happening. I wonder about that too. Is it just a memory, or is the person experiencing this other life? And I do wonder too, with the some of those um, the things that the writer talks about there, like with the grocery store parking lot. Is that a past life for sure, or is that just an alternate life, or is that some kind of a future life? Not so much the one that they're living now, but some other time period. Again, if consciousness does not experience time when it's out of the body, the way it you hear about in so many accounts, where sometimes it seems like ghosts or spirits or other beings do not know or experience time the way we do, then it seems like anyone who goes through that process of reincarnation could end up in any place, in any time. And so that's another concept that is really fascinating to me. Let's get through at least one more here, and 'cause this is a good sized one. This one says, "I was told about this by my father. It happened to one of his uncles sometime around the year 1957. Back then, his uncle often used to go hunting in the forests of a village in India. My father's ancestral home is there. Like on many other days, his uncle went hunting alone and climbed up a tree to wait, planning to shoot any deer or other animal that might pass below. That was a common path for such animals. It was also a full moon night, so everything was visible clearly in the moonlight. Around that time, there was a cholera outbreak in many parts of the region, and especially in the surrounding villages. Many people had died. However, his uncle wasn't aware that the village near the forest he was in had also been severely affected, with many deaths. While he was waiting on the tree for his prey, suddenly he started hearing a sound like anklets. He thought it might be a porcupine, and he got ready to hunt it. But after a while, he noticed that the sound wasn't coming from a porcupine. Instead, two human-like figures appeared. They were of medium height and wore strange ornaments made of small shells around their necks, on their clothes, even on their staffs, and on their feet. They moved slowly and kept approaching. As they got closer, he realized they didn't quite look human. Alarmed but alert, he thought to himself, whoever they are, if they come right beneath me, I'll shoot. And that's exactly what happened. When they reached right below the tree, he fired his gun. The moment the shot hit one of the figures, instantly turned into a crow and dropped to the ground, dead. The other let out a terrifying scream and fled into the forest, and was never seen again. In the morning, when his uncle climbed down, the crow was still lying there, but he didn't touch it. He went straight home. From that day onward, he never went hunting alone in that forest again. And that's where that one ends. I should have looked, I didn't think about this. I should have looked for folklore regarding humanoid figures that could change into animals or animal look beings that look like animals in their natural form that could appear almost like humans. Uh, but that one is amazing to me. I'm guessing the man must have felt threatened or just totally freaked out, and that's why he shot. Uh, I don't know, but that is quite the experience, and I also don't blame the uncle for not touching the whatever the remains were of this being, or not going back into those woods alone again. And there's just so many reports of odd things happening in and around forests and nature. These encounters with all kinds of other beings that seem to be out there, at least at times, at different points in time. And we hear this over and over and over again. And so I think that's really an amazing account there as to what, at least according to this person's family, what happened. But anyway, that is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for listening. And I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.